Welcome to Inspirational Journeys, everyone. My name is Ann Harrison, and today I have a book launch to celebrate. It's coming out on Tuesday, and my special guest, Felicia Heath, will tell us all about it. Welcome to the show, Felicia.
Thank you so much, Ann.
So, you are so welcome, and it's great to have you. So, why don't you start by telling the listeners and viewers a little bit about yourself?
I am a critical care anesthesiologist. I'm a blogger and now a debut author. I'm also a wife to another physician and a mother of 4 children, all under the age of 4.
Wow. Now that's gotta be a handful.
It is.
Wow. You got your hands full. So, what inspired you to become a writer?
I've been writing for quite a bit. I started writing in high school. I started with poetry and then I kept writing because the process was really therapeutic. And by reflecting, I was able to allow myself to heal through a lot of difficult circumstances. And writing, I felt like made me a better person. And becoming a writer meant that I could touch lives on a scale that I would otherwise never have a chance to make an impact on. And empowering others brings me a great deal of fulfillment, or just even the chance of empowering someone else.
Wow, yeah, because when I'm still working on the story, but when I started it, it's like you hooked me in. I love that. So, what inspired you to write this new book, The Spirit of Hummingbird?
So the inspiration itself, I would say, sparked about a decade ago when my self-perception as a young adult was beginning to evolve and transform. When I started sharing my story as a daughter of a prominent gangster and teenage mother with those around me, I realized that my childhood was different. It was saturated with instability and chaos, and perhaps that was nothing to be ashamed of, but even something to be proud of. And I realized that it was unique and interesting and a story worth telling. But it actually wasn't until I interviewed my mother, hoping to learn more about myself, when instead I learned so much more about her and her strength and her struggles as an immigrant and a young mother in a very dire situation, when I knew that the world had to hear her story as well.
Wow. So, and I noticed not only did you have the chapters in your voice, but you did interludes. How did that come about? I mean, how were you able to, was that from the interviews from your mother? I'm curious.
Yeah. A lot of that was inspired from the interviews with my mother because I learned so much about her. I realized I didn't know anything about my mom until I decided to write the book and asked her about questions. She didn't share a lot of her past and her time in Vietnam or her first couple of years in the United States with me, probably in a way to protect me. So I had to incorporate it, and I wanted to do it in a poetic way that allowed me to tell her story through mine.
Okay, why don't you tell us a little bit about the book? Because I should have gone that direction first, but I don't script, so
So the book is about my years as the daughter of a prominent gangster in Boston, and my mother, who was a teenage immigrant from Vietnam towards the end of the war. So I weave both of their incredible stories into my memoir as we live life actually on the run from law enforcement after my father escapes from prison in the late 1980s.
Okay. That does sound interesting. And it is an interesting read. And now I want to know how the story is. Because I'm up to chapter 19, so I want to know how the story ends now. It's hard to put it down. So, let's talk about your process. Did you outline the book, or did you just sit down and start writing? How did that work out?
When I decided to write the memoir, I was reading a lot. I went through as many memoirs as I could because I didn't necessarily have the time to sit down and write yet. So I went through every memoir I could get my hands on, either through reading or through audiobook, to identify a style that would represent my story best. And then when it came time to writing, I sat in a room, minimized my distractions as much as possible, read in the morning, read at night. If I hit a writer's block, I would pick up a book and I would write for consecutive days until the muse shows up and makes her magic, then ride that creative momentum out.
Wow. I mean, with everything that goes on in life, how can you sit and write for days like that?
So I was so lucky that my husband and I had both took family leave after having my third child. So I took 12 weeks and he took a month. And when he told me he really believed in the book and my craft, he offered to let me go by myself in a studio for 3 weeks to write the book. So he stayed home with the kids. I went to Philadelphia. I sat in a studio for 21 days and and I wouldn't leave until the manuscript was done.
Wow. I bet the editing process was a bit arduous too, was it not?
Yeah, I mean, I edit a lot on my own, and then, eventually through the publishing process, it got the professional editing.
Wow.
Mhm.
So do you have any tips and advice or takeaways that you'd like to share as far as writing goes, or if somebody's going through a trauma like that?
I would say write the book. There's no book to sell. There's no story for anyone to read. There's nothing to edit unless the book is written. So however you can do that, if you really want to write the book, it just needs to be finished. And eventually through the editing process, you can perfect it and make it into a way that you want. But the book needs to be written. And then I would say if you're writing about something difficult, it was extremely difficult for me to write about some painful experiences, but to tap into that as much as possible and be transparent to your readers, because that's the way they will be able to relate to you.
And I'm curious about this, and I don't want to spoil the book too much, but why would your aunt not believe you when you told her about Kenneth? That boy needed his tail tore up big time. And as a mom myself, I can say that.
I know. I think, I don't know the answer to that question, and I'll never know, but a part of me feels as though she's a mother and doesn't want to believe that her own child could be malicious. Perhaps that was it. And I think that she didn't have the best relationship with my mom. So perhaps some of that was also influencing how she treated me.
Oh, that's sad. Yeah. But, that's life though. So, where can people find you online?
They can find me on Instagram at Latin for Happiness _MD. And they can also visit my blog at www.mixedfeelingsmama.com.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I saw your blog. I've got to go. I found your Instagram, but I didn't add the link, and I've got to put that in the show notes. And I probably will follow you just because, I like to follow my guests, and I like to tag my guests on social too.
Okay.
So, are there any challenges, or what's a call to action you'd like to leave the listeners with? It could be a challenge or a resource, anything. Your call to action.
After reading Spirit of Hummingbird, I want my readers to feel a shift in their perspective and recognize the power in their own stories, because it is there. So acknowledge the strength in your circumstances and hardships and allow it to uplift you, because whatever you may be going through, you have the power to take control of your thoughts and manifest your own happiness.
Wow. Now I do have one final question, because now I'm curious. What was the inspiration behind that title, The Spirit of a Hummingbird?
Oh, so you'll find out as you read, but hummingbirds are a symbol of lightness and joy. And I found myself appreciating the beauty of the bird when I once saw it being painted in Spain. Then, after reading about them, I learned that they represent adaptability and the ability to combat negativity, which is a recurrent theme in the memoir. So, I had to continually tap into my capacity to handle the nature of our lives on the run and not let the dysfunction break my spirit.
Mm, mm. Now I get to share my story, and I know
Yes,
this is
please
about
do.
you, but the hummingbird just when you said that, that just hit me because I was sitting on my porch. This was a couple of years ago, but I mean the hummingbird comes to visit every once in a great blue moon, but this was a couple of years ago. I was sitting on my porch 2 days. One day, the hummingbird, I heard it chirping and flying like this across me. And then the next day,
Mhm.
it kind of scared me because I didn't know what it was. But the next day, the hummingbird hovers, 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 almost to my face, and then flies
Oh,
off.
wow.
Yeah, almost touches me. So I'm like,
Oh my goodness.
and then did some research and found out that means you receive an extra special blessing. It could be the
Yeah.
spirit of a loved one letting you know that they're okay or they're safe. And I
Mhm.
read, and I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
And then the hummingbird kind of hung around my house and on my porch and rested on my rail for a few days. And then one day last year, I was sitting in my swing. I got um, my hammock swing, I guess you call it. The hummingbird doesn't come that close, but the hummingbird comes up to me. I'm on the phone talking to a friend of mine. The hummingbird comes up and flies away. I'm like, oh, that's why hummingbirds are my favorite bird now.
Me too. They're definitely a symbol of good luck and good fortune, I
Yes,
think. Yeah.
yes, yes. I love that's why I had to share that because I absolutely love that. So anyway, I want to thank you for coming onto the show. And any last minute words, anything I missed, or any last minute things you want to say before we close?
I don't think so. Just be sure to get the book, Spirit of a Hummingbird Memories from a Childhood on the Run, on September 13th.
Is it up for pre-order now?
No, there's no pre order, just a really big launch.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And we're going to be building the buzz on that. So do get that book on Tuesday.
Yes.
Um, so thank you so much for being here again. And we challenge you to go out there and read to get inspired, write something inspiring, and share your creation with the world. For when you've touched one life, you've touched thousands. Thanks for joining us on Inspirational Journeys, everyone, and have a blessed day.
Thank you.